Hey, how's it going? So, I did a segment with CosmoBytes for their midweek special talking about world building and character creation that just went live last week, link below, and naturally, I couldn't help myself and had to design the characters we created. I talked about most of my tips for creation over on their channel, but anything I forgot the day of recording is going to be here, so consider it an extension. So, the first thing I want to talk about in regards to building worlds and characters is that it's so much easier to do when you have other people to bounce off of. I promise I would not have come up with any of the ideas that I had with Neb and Luna on my own, nor would I have created the world in only half an hour. I was brought onto the show as an example / guest artist, but it was actually a learning experience for me as well. I'm now more confident in my process and much less intimidated by just starting. Because as many artists know, starting is the most difficult part. Usually I create characters for the express purpose of roleplay, and they fit into rather basic cookie-cutter worlds that we can then make interesting via the characters. My Soul Eater fan character, Ayaka, who I have showcased on this channel before, is an exception to this because I made her at a very young age, and mostly keep her around because I like her visual design. She had an overarching story when I was like 13, but it was bad, so I scrapped it. If you find yourself stuck for ideas with the character, I find it helpful to choose a theme of some kind. The character may embody this theme however you like, or however it'll fit into the universe you have ready. For example, Ayaka has a visual theme of colour and joy, while one of my other OCs, Marco, has an emotional theme of death. These are not things I consciously decided when designing them, but it is an example of something that you can consciously decide as you make your own. As for Sparrow, who's been on screen this entire time and I never even introduced her, I didn't so much pick a theme for her as just ran with the story that we brainstormed together, and added a few little details I thought would make for good visual design to match the kind of character I saw in my head. I imagine the lands she lives on being very heavily forested and mountainous, which means the landscape is built for either climbing between the trees under the canopy or flying overhead. I use this world detail to separate the birds into two distinct categories: smaller ones that climb and generally live below the brush, and larger ones that fly and generally live above. Naturally, those that live above would develop traits to protect themselves from the sun, while those below wouldn't have as much a need for it. Because Sparrow lost a wing, however, I would assume that she either doesn't get a lot of sun these days or only gets it while down at the shore. I gave her practical, comfortable, but worn clothes as it fits her status. I didn't actually have a specific meaning in mind for her tattoo when I added it, but I think I'll make it into a mark of her particular clan / nest / family. I think it would be cool if we call them nests, so I'm gonna call them nests. That wing was hell to draw, let me tell you. I'm glad I only gave her a static pose so I could draw the wing once and be done with it. Next time I draw her, it'll be simplified because I'm not putting myself through that shit again. Phila was a complete 180 in terms of design. I had all the freedom in the world to make her look as wacky and colourful as I like, which means, of course, she's pink. I love bright, colourful fish, and while I didn't use any real-life fish as reference, I did use some art I found online. I had similar reference images up for Sparrow while designing her. I'll do my darn best to have all the original images linked below. Phila is royalty, which means glitz and glam, nice clothes, any indication of wealth I could think of. She also lives underwater, so nothing too heavy that will hold her back from swimming effectively. I like to imagine she swims like an eel, like sea snake, just wiggles. You may have noticed I originally intended to give her flowing mermaid hair like Ariel, but I scrapped it when I got into line work after I thought about how difficult that would be to maintain in practice. My favorite thing about world building is that you get to pick and choose your realism. You get to pick and choose what is delightfully fantastical and what is just plain unbelievable. In that regard, bird and fish people feuding over the stars is entirely possible, but I just can't wrap my head around the fish having white people hair. So, building more off of the world we created, I wanted to integrate some more magic and spirituality into Phila's people. So, imagine an urban magic setting, but underwater. Anything and everything you could possibly need, there's a spell for. I also like to imagine they have ways of paying tribute to the stars, similar to the Hindu practice of shaving their hair as an offering to the gods. I've put a slight variation on it though, and have decided to make it a coming of age and banishment practice. Having her head shaved when she came of age was an act of humbling, and for those banished is an act of humiliation. Seeing a very old or very young person with no or little hair is a sign of horrible disgrace. Stemming from that, I like to also imagine there are a band of rebel fish that don't follow the rest of their kind in worshipping the stars, and keep their heads shaved to identify themselves and visibly rebel. I don't really have anything else to say about these two, just look at Phila's snarky little murder face. This is a bitch who won't hesitate. I struggled a lot with the colour composition for Phila. I had a general idea of how I wanted the colours to work while I was sketching, but after laying them down and looking at them all at once, I don't think they're terribly cohesive. I might have to rework her outfit at some point. So I'll end this video the same way we ended the segment, with an invitation for you, yes you, to make your own character to put in this world. No artistic skill required. This is an exercise flexing your storytelling and character building skills, not art. Write a long-winded comment about your own bird or fish person living in this world, new bits of world building that we might not have thought of, or parts we mentioned but don't care enough to elaborate on. Whatever your little baby heart desires. And if you leave a physical description or a link to your artwork, I might just draw them myself. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you next time.